Don't. You're gonna want to run away. Run now. A while back on the channel, I mentioned one of the scariest horror game moments I ever experienced as a kid. The said moment comes from an iconic series of games known infamously now as the Metro franchise, specifically 2033. As I stated in that video, Metro was a video game that went heavily underappreciated in my opinion. Sure, lots of fans praise it today, but the series hasn't always been looked upon in such a high standard. Many people call it a blatant ripoff of Stalker, at least the kids I grew up around did. However, until 2016, there wasn't anything to hold Metro up on its legs besides its gameplay and storyline. Don't get me wrong, if you ask me, I'd say they nailed the story, and I always play those games even today. Though to a lot of fans, there were still some things missing. The environment was fantastic, but was very linear and limited. You can loot the environment for supplies and such, but it wasn't exactly groundbreaking like Stalker's vast open world or sudden toxic and lethal anomalies. It wasn't until 2016 that I had heard of anything new coming to the Metro series. The first two games, 2033 and Last Light, have been released so long that it's probably impossible to find a physical copy of the originals for Xbox or PlayStation. They've both been remastered as well, with graphical gameplay improvements to match the modern age. Then it was announced, like the perfect apple on top of a tree, Metro Exodus, the first open-world Metro game ever. Holy fuck, open-world Metro? No other three words could be combined into a sentence and make me this excited. It seemed like an eyesore, but my expectations were up high in the sky, and I pre-ordered the game a few days before it launched. Being the largest game in the series, it's no surprise that it has impeccably good graphics, and those of you who may own a 2080 Ti should consider yourselves lucky, since this game was marketed to be gorgeous for anyone who owns that specific card. Without it, thankfully, it's still a beautiful looking game. The sound design, the environment, the distant structures, and shit you can see from afar, it's massive. Bear with me here, folks. I'm obviously going to cover a majority of the game, but I was having a lot of problems with the game on my end. Random crashes and unnecessary settings being altered every time I turned it on, so I wasn't able to cover the ending. Don't fret, there's still a lot I want to go over. There are multiple chapters in the game, each with different open-world areas that introduce unique abilities like paddling on a boat in the first level or running through the rusted, destroyed ruins of a bandit society in the middle of the desert. Each area has its own enemies, environmental hazards, lootable structures, so on and so forth. It's a widely impressive take on the genre, and dare I say that it comes pretty fucking close to being as good as Stalker. But before I can discuss the open world aspects, I firstly have to dive into the storyline. Fans like myself waited in anticipation for the epic conclusion to Artyom's story, the main character from the original games. If you want to get technical, it took a whopping 6 years for us to finally take control of him again. This time, he suspects that there's life on the surface somewhere. Swearing that he picked up a radio signal from an unknown source, Artyom wants to venture out into the world to search for anyone who may have found a way to live above ground, which means we're leaving the Metro behind, for good. The beginning of the game is just an onslaught of different things. At first, Artyom is attacked in the tunnels by some hungry watchmen. Then we just barely make it by, waking up in the hospital, and before too long we're back on the surface with Anna from Last Light, who became Artyom's wife. She's also the daughter of Colonel Miller, who leads the group on their escapade across the country inside the Aurora, a coal-fed train that runs like a dream.
So, son, care to tell me what
Arno,
do we do
please.
now?
Let us not panic and think constructively.
There are new characters introduced as well. In fact, the entire crew is new. There's Duke, a cocky yet cowardly soldier who blabbers his mouth a lot, but he's the youngest of the group, so what do you expect? Idiot, who does much of the same thing, but comes up with more witty remarks. Stepan, a broad-shouldered kind of guy with a big heart behind his menacing appearance. Sam, an American soldier who somehow ended up in the Spartan Rangers. I've never played his DLC, but I thought that Sam was criminally underrated. He deserved a lot more dialogue here.
Okay, so where's my welcoming committee and red carpet? I don't get this.
Yeah, a little weird. If his voice sounds familiar, it should. Sam is voiced by Steve Bloom, who has been in just about every fucking thing ever. His voice is so aesthetically pleasing, and it hasn't changed a bit over the years of my childhood.
Thomas!
Oh, fuck. Sorry, Steve Bloom. Anyways, Damir, who is responsible for keeping the group safe and making the right call for everyone's good nature, and Yermak, who is the only reason we even have the Aurora, but is also a charming and caring old man with a heart of steel. It's a big crew of people from different backgrounds, but the important thing is that their connection feels raw. While playing through the game, I didn't want a single one of these guys to meet their fate. They're all very well acted and portray heroic symbols in this dead world. There's a lot of downtime, and one thing I have to mention is that it's a very, very dialogue-heavy game. There's so much banter between the crewmates and from Miller, but I like it more this way because it makes the game feel more alive. It's not just about Artyom or two other people, it's about the group, the rest of the world, and what lies outside of the metro. Moments like these when you can walk around the train are definitely a nice touch, even if they do take a bit of patience to sit through sometimes. After securing the train, we are officially welcomed into the first open world chapter, the Volga. A drowned palace full of mutated abominations and these giant fucking lobster things. Immediately, the player is encouraged to follow the story, but you don't have to. You can roam around and find all sorts of cool supplies for Artyom. Finding things like weapon parts, crafting materials, and gear upgrades will prove to be lifesavers as they improve the overall quality of Artyom's defenses. Such things like a carrier vest or an ammunition attachment are easily accessible early on so long as you look around. Scattered throughout these vast open world segments are safe rooms, which all contain a weapons workbench and some light equipment to help you out further. You can also sleep for whatever amount of time you'd like to in case you don't want to travel when it's dark. Things like this completely change the rhythm of the game and I love it. No longer forced to stick with the claustrophobic confines of the metro, we can finally explore a new surface area where some spots don't require a mask and civilization has risen again. Or fallen, depending on how you look at it. It's crazy to think that there were people out here this entire time. The Volga chapter is pretty long, but that's not a bad thing. It serves as an introduction to the dangers of the vast environment with the watchmen hunting you down, the demons flying close overhead, and other sorts of dangerous beasts that will fuck you up and turn you into dinner. Not to mention the hostile faction of humans that have taken refuge inside this condemned church. The combat in this game is epic also. If you hit an enemy in a fatal spot, they can talk shit from around the corner until they bleed to death. It's straight out of a Stalker game, only much more immersive here. If you kill enough enemies, the faction you're fighting will lift up their guns and surrender in hopes that you stop the bloodshed. It's realistic that a lot of the fighters here aren't trying to murder anyone or do any more harm than good. I like the aspect around intimidating them. After this, two of the citizens rescued from the religious cult inside the church are named Nastya and Katya. They join the Aurora crew. Katya informs the Spartans of a man named Crest who could help them fix the train and get them back on track. Alright, so there's a lot of explanation that happens during the entirety of the game, so as always, I will do my best to summarize. If I make any mistakes, feel free to correct me in the comments. Miller reveals that he has always known there was life outside of the metro, but lots of propagandists speak had led everyone to believe the only life left were ravaging bandits and hostile ex-military forces. As we can clearly see in the Volga, that's not really true. There's a dangerous cult of people that repent anything electrical or technological, claiming that it's a sin to use anything in terms of that. There are also scattered prisoners at different camps that you can save for the sake of karma, or you can do these mini side quests for the crew of the train, like Nastya, who asks Artyom to find her teddy bear, or Stepan, who wants a guitar to use for entertaining the rest of the group. Acquiring said items is tricky. The bandits possess the guitar, whilst the fucking demon is sleeping next to the teddy bear. I haven't talked about these abominations yet, but that's because they freak me out. Demons are a hellspawn in the metro community, and are a close second on the fear factor chart of enemies. I think the first would be a librarian, but they unfortunately don't make a return in Metro Exodus. Demons are scary because they not only fly, but they are capable of following you all across the map if they're hungry enough. They also appear to be way more threatening this time around. As Artyom gets too close, he might as well be wearing raw meat around his neck. At the end of Volga, once we're done exploring the environment and gathering the passenger train car for Katya and Nastya, it's finally time to make the final push for the bridge that is blocked by Silantius and his dreadful cult. One thing I should mention is that the Metro games are famous for one specific thing. Your choices matter. If you approach a situation with no preparation or consistent accuracy, you're going to cause a massive firefight. While this might sound satisfying, Metro's outcomes are all about how Artyom decides to proceed to the next area of his journey. For example, it's the final push to rescue everyone from the Volga and travel onwards to the Ark, where the Ministry of Defense supposedly awaits. All we have to do is sneak by these guards and get to Salantius without being seen or killing anyone. Easier said than done though, considering how many enemies they intentionally place in this part. Unfortunately, I ended up getting into a fight with them and blew my cover, and do you know what happened after this? Duke comes in to get Salantius to lower the bridge. When Salantius warns his fellow cult members of our attack, Duke is shot and then left for dead as Artyom plunges desperately onto the moving train. This part frustrated me, but it's also kind of fascinating. In many games today, they like to lie to you and tell you you have full control over the game's outcome and your decisions matter, when in reality that's not always the case. Here, all because I went in guns blazing and didn't succeed in slipping by unscathed, Duke's fate was sealed and I had lost him after the bridge was lowered. If you do manage to sneak by all the guards, however, Duke will survive and make it onto the train with you. So now we are officially onto the next big chapter of the game. It has reached spring, and the air is ripe to find the Ark, which Miller can't stop talking about for some reason. When he shows you his phone call between the members of the Ark and himself, things seem a bit off.
Identify yourself. Over. This is Colonel Sviatoslav Melnikov speaking. I'm in command of a special operations force. We have received your signal and are currently heading your way. Do you copy? Over. Yes. Hear you loud and clear. Who am I talking to? How do I address you? Deputy Chief of Communications Department, Major Ivanov. A moment.
This is so fucked up because these people are lying to us. Blinded by the hope that they may have found sustainable life on the surface, Miller reluctantly agrees to head straight towards the supposed Ministry of Defense. When we get there, there's an obvious feeling of discomfort and agony, as if someone hasn't been here in a very long time. Suddenly, we work our way deeper into the complex when we realize that this isn't the Ministry of Defense. Oops.
Comrade Minister, Commander of the Joint Special Operations Forces, Squadron of the City of Moscow, Colonel Miller, reporting.
Women and children? Good. Haven't had those in a while.
Who are you?
It's an ambush led by an ever-growing team of cannibals that kidnap people and feed off of them to survive. Nothing we haven't heard before, but to witness it going to this extent for a massive civilization of people is ridiculously uncomfortable. This segment of the game is so fucking intense, and I loved fighting back against the cannibalism crowd.
Since this nice young man will surely do it instead. He won't dare be contradictory once we're done with you.
Artyom, I knew! Behind you!
Just like the others. So just...
Freeze!
Yes.
Let him go!
Don't kill me!
Now!
Remember what I told you. There was an
Enough chatter.
He's laying on the ground. Once we're out of that dungeon, we're moving onwards into the Caspian, a dreaded dry land full of even more trouble than the Volga. While the cultists there only rejected heretics that used modern technology, the Baron's thugs in the Caspian are much more volatile. Wearing scrap armor and carrying heavier guns, they can fuck up Artyom faster than a demon could. One thing I also forgot to mention was the realism behind the enemy behavior in this game. If an enemy sees Artyom, they'll shout to the others. Might not seem all that fancy, but depending on where you are, the enemies will change their dialogue, saying things like, "There, in the bushes," or "He's behind us." Lots of games add this immersive dialogue to their enemy variants, and I just love it. Assholes will flank you and throw grenades if you're in an out-of-reach area as well, which can make for a difficult game changer. Oh yeah, the guns. The fucking guns in this game. There's something iconic about the weapons from the first two games that still hits home for me today. The only big downside from those games is that the customization felt limited and didn't offer anything major besides a grip or suppressor for most guns. In Exodus, customization has been upscaled to 4K and enhanced with that Ultra HD ray tracing in order to ensure the absolute best upgrades imaginable. Scopes, sights, stocks, barrels, grips, just about anything you can think of. You can change your arsenal to match your playstyle. Want to charge in with a heavy machine gun that's operated by a pneumatic pump? Go for it. Or maybe you prefer to take things slow, scope out your enemies and pick them off from a distance using an upgraded valve rifle. The possibilities are endless. As I mentioned, the Caspian is only the second take on the open world aspect of Metro Exodus. Since it's a lot bigger than the Volga, we'll probably need a better way of getting around if we can find one. Oh, no shit. We get a vehicle in this game? Holy fuck, that makes exploration even better. The Baron is the leader of these cursed lands, and all throughout your adventure in the desert, you'll come to learn more about his tribe of slavers and murderers. He's actually somewhat comedic with the way he hires a man who broadcasts his messages across the radio. However, the more damage you cause to his outposts and numbers, he grows increasingly frustrated and starts insulting Artyom directly through the radio.
Listen up, everyone. The Baron... Fuck off, dumbass. All right. Everyone in second reserve. Assemble after me.
I do respect your courage, but simply throwing your lives away, it's such a waste.
I respect people with a purpose in life. So, I'm ready to provide you with fuel for your journey. I'm not asking for much in return. Surrender Gyul to me. Bring her to me, and we all win. I have Gyul, you will have your fuel.
I really liked the Baron, and I thought that the dialogue here was spot on. What happens is simple. The Baron is trying to besiege the lighthouse where a woman named Gyul is fighting for her life. She has answers and can help Artyom get inside of the bunker in order to gain access to the satellite images they need to see where the crew can plan their next move. This is when we have the return of these fucking butt suckers, the goddamn spider bugs. They're allergic to the light, so you should never have an excuse to turn it off. This part isn't hard, so to speak, it's just a maze. You're running back and forth in the constant darkness, trying to find the satellite images, dodging the spider bugs, cobwebs, and ugh, Jesus Christ, I'm lost. Anyways, Artyom escapes the dark, sunken facility. While down there, you can actually find Gyul's mother, who is still holding their family portrait even after death. Taking this and giving it to Gyul will win her over to the crew, and therefore you'll receive a flask that Artyom can give to Nasty as a gift. See, little details like this really make me love the game even more. Adding these mini quests and segments isn't necessary for the introduction of our new cast of characters, but they're fun to do and ultimately rewarding. Actually, I take that back. Doing certain favors for characters on the train can result in a different ending, but I'm no expert. I'm unaware of when or what exactly you need to do to get the greatest ending possible. With the satellite maps in hand, it's time for us to leave the Caspian. There's just one problem left to solve. The train requires water to run, and lots of it. Who other to steal from than the Baron himself? With Damir at your side, you have to navigate through the Baron's main camp undetected, which is definitely easier said than done. Do it right though, Damir and Artyom make a valiant escape. Artyom falls asleep, only to be woken up to an attack from the rest of the Baron's henchmen. This part is very reminiscent of Call of Duty, with the way people constantly shout over each other, the blinding dust storm, the whizzing of bullets flying by your head. It's moments like these that I expect from the Metro series, and I fucking adore it. Oh, great. The game crashed. Yeah, I do have some minor complaints about the overall quality of the game, but rest assured, it doesn't remove the fun I have every time I launch it up. For starters, NPCs suffer from that disease in most modern games where they walk slower than the player does, making a lot of storyline missions longer than they need to be. Here, I'm just trying to follow Damir through the caves, but he's moving at the pace of a watchman trying to wrestle a fucking demon. It's a complete joke. Sometimes the hit registration is a little wonky, but I guess that can be chalked up to accuracy issues. I don't know. I missed a lot of headshots in this game that I feel I shouldn't have, but hey, maybe my aim was off. These small complaints do little to affect the overall game, and they're not even worth mentioning in detail. The game is fantastic, and the storyline holds up so well in my opinion. There are multiple moments when you'll have time to just examine how fucking beautiful the graphics are. Even on medium settings with a semi-decent rig, the game is flawless. These moments of solitude before a big battle or traveling to your next stop are essential to key world building. Speaking of next stops, it's time to demolish the Baron once and for all, including his ginormous lair made of scrap metal. Man, gotta give him props for the giant fucking face. Anyways, you have to fend off waves of his men in order to proceed. After this, it's time to confront him.
It's the strongest who survives.
With the Baron dead and gone, Damir decides that his life belongs to the Resistance with Gyul, whom he has fallen for. Once again, we are forced to say goodbye to one of our brothers in arms. This concludes the Caspian journey, and next we're on to further adventures, like the Taiga, a woodsy wasteland where things seem all too quiet. Miller orders Alyosha and Artyom to travel ahead using the rail cart. Just then, the cart falls into the water, and we are separated from Alyosha and our gear. Great. Now what the fuck am I supposed... Oh, Well, hello. Yeah, it's the Helsing. This thing is a guaranteed kill if you hit an enemy anywhere above the waist. Be careful though, as they too can deal the same amount of damage to Artyom. These unknown species of bastard are apparently called children of the forest, and we are invaders, of course. I feel bad for Artyom. He's just trying to find a nice place to go and always ends up in these situations where he can't possibly win without bloodshed. But fuck them and fuck their crossbows too. I say they deserve to die for trying this hostile shit in the first place. And according to the one who saved Artyom from drowning, they've taken Alyosha. This entire chapter is pretty fucking grueling, to be honest. Not only is Artyom stripped of his upgraded weapons and crafting supplies, but he's also forced to use this dinky crossbow. Don't get me wrong, it's a one-tap kill if you hit the enemy right, but the starting bow is a joke. If you miss, you'd better be ready to jump and hop all around like a baboon trying to dodge their fucking arrows. After this, of course, you face the master of the forest himself, the big bear that's been terrorizing the lands. He's not that tough, but boy is he scary. He's the size of a school bus and can kill you pretty quickly if he gets too close. Just launch a few shotgun shells into his face and he'll give up eventually. Then we meet Olga, the lady who saves us from drowning. She says that Alyosha is okay and he's awaiting your arrival at the dam. There's a lot of fighting and navigation at this part, so as usual I'm gonna... Oh my god. The fucking game crashed again. How many more times is God gonna punish me today? Alright, so to avoid any unnecessary information, I'm only gonna summarize how I feel about the game in total. I apologize in advance that, again, I won't be able to discuss the ending in thorough detail, but as you can see, I had a lot of technical difficulties. I can still go over why exactly I loved Metro Exodus as a whole. Is it actually underrated? Maybe not, but it deserves a place as one of the prime examples of a game in its genre that sets the golden standard. As controversial as this statement might seem, this is probably the closest thing we are ever going to get in terms of Stalker 2. The graphics, the gameplay, combat, enemy variety, mutations, open world segments, gun building, gear upgrading, it's such a phenomenal game that I couldn't help but talk about it. If you're not convinced that it's worth it, just know that it's not a game meant to be completed in one sitting. While it sometimes does suffer from the major dialogue moments and having to painstakingly listen to a specific conversation for a different ending outcome can be tedious, but as I mentioned before, they don't hurt the game in a major way. If anything, it just adds personality to it. I cared about everyone on the Aurora, Artyom included. You can choose how you go about each situation, either by being a bloodthirsty maniac or choosing a passive, low-profile pathway to sneak by without damaging your karma. Best of all, it's just so much fun. Nothing satisfies me more than talking to the mutants and pretending I'm really in the boots of Artyom and I'm controlling his actions and journey with every bullet and step along the way. It's a masterpiece, and I only hope that the Metro games continue to receive love in the future. If there were another game announced in the next couple years, I'd be extremely shocked, but super stoked. The Metro series is a banger, and if you're unaware of how much fun can be had within the universe, I highly recommend you just get all of them and try them out yourself. If you're not feeling the Stalker open world vibes and want a more linear experience, start with the first couple of games. Then play this one for the ultimate experience and conclusion to Artyom's massive story, and pray with the rest of us that a sequel will be just as good, if not better, than Exodus. It truly is a gem. Thanks again for watching, guys. As I said, I'm sorry for not covering the whole game. I had a lot of technical problems when filming due to crashes and graphic changes that I didn't make. Besides that, I hope you enjoyed this video in all of its hideous glory. I'll see you guys next time when we discuss one of my favorite horror games of all time, Outlast. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our channel, and thanks for checking out this video. Leave a like, comment, and since we're on the subject, enjoy yourself. Thanks for watching the content, folks.